What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Nerding Out Sports. It's Rob and Donald, and the Giants have rounded out the majority of their coaching staff. We weren't recording for a announcement of Mike Kafka, but we do have a new offensive coordinator. It is Mike Kafka, and we have a new defensive coordinator. It is Don Wink, not the game show host, Michael K. Martindale. So the Giants have a new defensive and offensive coordinator. Um, I'll say my initial reaction real quick before I let you go. I'm happy. I wanted Pep Hamilton, but I got two out of the three of my coaches. I wanted Dable, Hamilton, and Martindale. And I know we got Dable and Martindale, so I'm okay with it. I like Kafka. Um, Obviously, when you have a guy that worked with Patrick Mahomes, it can't be a terrible thing. You know, he's going to definitely bring some fresh ideas to an offense that desperately needs it. So I think he and Dable will work well together. But Martindale, man, I'm thrilled with that. I know the Ravens defense dropped off a little bit or a lot last year compared to what they were, but this was a top five defense like every year under Wink. So the Giants need to blitz more. It's simple as that. I like Patrick Graham a lot. I really, really do. But his defense wasn't working with the personnel we had last year. You know, we weren't blitzing enough. And I think one player that's going to really, really benefit, and I'll get your opinion on this, is Azeez Ojulari. I think he is really going to benefit from having Wink Martindale being the defensive coordinator. A new scheme for a guy like Azeez. You know, really see him after a great rookie year, kind of evolve into even more of an elite pass rusher.
I am stoked that we got Wink Martindale. I wanted Wink Martindale to be our coach 2 years ago. When we were interviewing him, Judge, and Bieniemy, the only guy I didn't want of the three was Judge. Like my world had collapsed when I read the tweet that the Giants had hired Judge because I really wanted Wink Martindale. I've always been a huge fan of him. He's actually one of the best defensive coordinators in all of football. He has been for a number of years. I think the drop off last year was nothing to do with him or the scheme. I think it's a lot to do with the fact that there was a lot of injuries that Baltimore suffered, and that would attribute to some of the decline that they had. But he is one of the most aggressive defensive coordinators in the sport. He blitzes a lot. I think he's going to be very similar to the what Spagnuolo did for us. A lot of blitzing, but you need the personnel for that. So the Giants will need to get players which will suit his personnel. Now, I actually think that it was a blessing in disguise now. Now, I really like Patrick Graham. I know that the players loved him, and I know the organization loved him, and I know that he had a great interview with Minnesota. I was really hoping that he'd get the Minnesota job, but he decided to move on, and I send my sincere gratitude to Graham for what he did because he kept our season from being a complete catastrophe. I do know that we used too much cover two, I think, and we kind of we weren't aggressive enough. But again, he doesn't exactly have the pass rush. So then he was probably thinking, well, our secondary is stronger than our pass rush, so we'll try and keep the maybe bend but don't break. I think was Patrick Graham's plan, and listen, for the most part it worked. I would say, but I think that this will certainly help us. He's going to be blitzing a lot, Martindale, and so I think I'd be looking for a middle linebacker in the draft that will allow for him, because I think Blake Martinez, after the injury, I'm a Blake Martinez fan and stuff like that, but I think you probably need a little bit more athletic guy that can cover more. And then you definitely need Ojulari, and you'll definitely need another outside linebacker on the other side to really make this scheme work. So I think you definitely need that, and it's going to benefit McKinney as well. I think that the more guys that you have that can affect the quarterback, the better, and it'll suit Martindale. And it's not just Martindale. Martindale's going to bring his guys with him. So I read that from the Entertainer that he might be bringing Rob Ryan with him as an as a position coach, I would love that. He's a really good coach too. I think there's going to be some really good guys. We'll be bringing some guys in from the Ravens. We're going to have a Raven style defense. We're going to have a Buffalo style offense. That's a dream.
Yeah, and it goes back to something that we talked about before, was that the Giants have done everything differently this time around with their GM search to the coaching, and to get a GM from a winning organization, then to get a head coach, that was a coordinator from a winning organization, and now you're getting the coordinators from Kafka's coming from Kansas City, who's been one of the most successful teams over the last few years. And then you're getting Martindale, who's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. So they're going and they're getting guys from winning organizations, from good organizations, and they're trying to build something here. And that's what you have to do. And we know it's going to be a process. It doesn't mean that the Giants are going to go from the team they were last year, which was utter garbage, to a playoff team. It's not going to be an overnight change. It's going to be a process. Players are going to get cut. There's going to be a complete rebuild, I'm hoping. But I feel like we have the coaches in place to help players progress faster, to where it might not be a long process for them to rebuild into what, because we have pieces on the defense already that you can build around. McKinney's one of those guys. Ojulari. You can't get rid of Leonard Williams simply because of his contract. So you have him. Adoree Jackson shouldn't be going anywhere. Aaron Robinson and Darnay Holmes both played pretty well last year. So you have some pieces already in place on this defense that you can build around. So I think it's just a matter of what the scheme is going to be. And I'm looking forward to it. And I like what they've done. I love our coaching staff so far. There's a couple of holes that need to be filled. But other than that, it's been almost a perfect offseason so far in terms of getting our GM and getting our coaches. And I do applaud, for the first time in a while, I'm going to applaud Mara and Tisch, because they stepped aside. They did what we wanted them to do. They stepped aside once they got the GM. They said, okay, you do it. It's your thing. You want Dable? We're going to get you Dable. Go get him. I know Dable wanted Ken Dorsey, but I don't think Kafka's a bad second option there if you couldn't get Dorsey. So it's like, I just feel like Mara and Tisch are letting the GM and his guys do their job, and that's what we wanted. So now this is Joe Shane's show, and it's not John Mara's show. So now if anything goes wrong with this, the fans can't blame the Maras. The Maras are going to be like, well, you wanted this, right? This was your choice of GM. So I'm talking a lot negative right there, but I'm actually really, really excited right now for the first time in a while. And I want to see how they build this roster, because now it brings up so many questions with the draft, because we can go a bunch of different directions. We know for a fact they have to get offensive line with one of those two picks in the first round. But now it opens up the possibility of Kyle Hamilton. No one was really considering that for the Giants. Kyle Hamilton's a hell of a player. Mm-hmm. And I think that if we drafted him, he almost is a perfect fit for Wink Martindale's scheme. So, I mean, this is a very solid draft class in terms of pass rushers and linebackers.
Or Hutchinson and Thibodeau. I mean, if one of them drops, then you've got a really good pass rusher there too. Mm-hmm. But I do know what you're saying about the safeties. If you're getting, I don't know. I mean, he is a game changer, but safety is not really a premium top 5 position for me. As I tend to stick by my philosophy of protect the quarterback, rush the quarterback, or be a quarterback for my top 10 picks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, Hamilton's such a special talent, though, because I feel like he can play all over the place, and we want athletic guys that can move around. So, like, you look at him and you look at McKinney and you look at Julian Love. These are guys that can play safety and they can play corner. Mm. And you know that McKinney can drop down into the box, and Hamilton can do it as well. You have guys that can play all over the field and sort of a Swiss Army knife in a sense. And I feel like that is what you need when you're trying to rebuild a team and get a lot of young athletic players for the future that are going to be here for the long term. Now, I understand what you're saying, though. I feel like at pick 5, you have to go offensive line unless one of those guys like Thibodeau or Hutchinson are there at 5, then you grab them. But if assuming the order goes, Neal might be number 1 overall because the Jaguars need a tackle. They desperately need to protect Lawrence.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too much into draft talk right now, but if you think about the way it's going to go, Giants are going to have their choice of Charles Cross or Ikem Bukwanu, and that's great. You get a great tackle to go along on the other side of Andrew Thomas, and you've solidified the ends of your offensive line.
Or there's a team that goes up and gets a quarterback, and if that's the case, then a game changer drops to us because you could be looking at a Thibodeau or a Hutchinson to drop down to us, which should be a dream for me. I really want a pass rusher because there will be talent later on in the draft where you could upgrade your offensive line. You know what I mean? You could maybe see Falale drop down to the second round, possibly late first round. You can maybe move up. You know, hey, maybe Willis will shock us and really impress our scouts. You know, maybe because we've got so many great offensive coaches now. Maybe they're going to fall in love with Willis. I would certainly like that. He's got the skill set that you'd want in a quarterback. Lots of options for the draft. But to go back to what we were talking about, our coaches, the Giants also brought in Shea Tierney to be the quarterback coach. Now, Shea Tierney worked with Dable as the assistant quarterback coach for the Bills, so now he's going to be the quarterback coach. The website Film Talk Football tweeted that Wink Martindale is expected to bring in Rob Ryan and 3-time Pro Bowl linebacker in Miami, Brian Cox. Now, Brian Cox also worked for the Falcons, I believe, as an defensive back coach. So we're bringing in Brian Cox and Rob Ryan and Wink Martindale, big personalities, really great defensive minds. That's exciting. So then we've also added Shea Tierney. Adam Henry will be the wide receiver coach. Bobby Johnson will be your offensive line coach. Jerome Henderson, defensive back coach. And then we also hired an assistant GM in Brandon Brown. What can you tell us about Brandon Brown, my man?
To be perfectly honest, I did not even know that happened. I've been, kind of out of the loop there, so I'm going to need you to help me out there with that news, if you could.
Okay,
I have no idea that we made that.
Yeah, he's the assistant general manager now, and
Abrams has a different title because Abrams was the assistant GM before, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, Abrams has now changed his title. So Our assistant GM is now actually going to be Brown, who spent 5 seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles. He was promoted to the team's director of player personnel in 2021. In that role, Brown oversaw Eagles pro scouting department and did crossover work for college scouting. So he's been involved in the Eagles rebuild, which has been very quick. So he has to deserve some credit for that. Yeah. Prior to the Eagles, he spent 2 seasons with the Indianapolis Colts as an advanced scout and scouting assistant in 15 and 16. He spent 2 years at BC. You know how much the Giants love guys from BC. So he's very experienced. He's obviously been involved in scouting for the Colts, who have got a good scouting system and have drafted very well over the last few years. And the Eagles, for exactly the same reasons. So for an assistant GM, that's pretty good going. He's a much bigger upgrade than Abrams. I can guarantee you that, because Abrams is not really a football guy. He's more of a cap guy. So I think that's what he's going to be. I think he's just going to be a capologist for us, and Brandon Brown will be working beside Shane.
Well, I hate giving the Eagles any sort of credit, but their rebuild was very quick. No one thought they were going anywhere this year, right? Like, new coach, and they had the cap held that we're currently going to be in, and they ate a bunch of money, and they got to the playoffs. Look, give them credit, with the quarterback that people didn't think was going to amount to anything, and people still think they need a quarterback. I don't think I should be giving the Eagles any credit. But no, I was saying Jalen Hurts was not really considered by a lot of people to be the guy, and he still isn't to some people. But look, they got to the playoffs, right? And it's really all that matters. When you're in year one of what was supposed to be a pseudo rebuild, I guess, and you get to the postseason, that's a good thing. So I'll take anybody that's had success if we're going to rebuild this organization. And that goes back to a point we talked about earlier and in previous episodes is they're getting guys who have experience but also have had success. You know, Joe Shane has been part of a successful rebuild in Buffalo. And now you got Brown coming in, who just did the job with Philadelphia. He was part of that. And he, like you said, was with the Colts, who draft very, very well. So, I mean, it's almost like we're in a dream because they're doing everything that we wanted them to do, right? They're bringing in different guys from different organizations that no one would have thought they'd bring in. Previous years, even just last year, they probably don't make these kind of moves. You know, like, so this is definitely, it's such a breath of fresh air to see them making these kind of moves. And I'm glad you brought that up because I had no idea we made that move for Brown. I didn't see it anywhere. I don't know if maybe I just overlooked it or what, but that is very, very exciting news.
I'm really excited that Shane is coming into the building and he is making changes. He's already starting to bring in his guys, and he's not wasting any time. And he is bringing in really experienced coaches. Now, Dable doesn't have a relationship with Wink Martindale, and I like that. I like the fact that we are looking outside the box and we're looking at the best available candidates, not just people that the head coach is comfortable with. You're getting guys that are really highly rated. I mean, Wink Martindale, in the 3 seasons prior to 2021, the Baltimore Ravens ranked number 1 in fewest yards allowed and points per game. So that shows how good he is. He blitzes more than, like, I believe I read the stat, he blitzes 9% more than any other defense in the league. So he's going to go at you, and he's going to go at you hard. And I love that. It's exciting, but we need to get the personnel for that. But I'm pretty sure we will. We need to free up some cap room and get guys that suit his system. But I think that's going to be exciting. Now, that's the defensive side. I am stoked about Wink Martindale. Absolutely stoked. He's been one of my favorite coaches in the NFL for a long time. So I'm very excited about that. Now, as for Kafka, now Mahomes is credited him with a lot of the work that he's done behind the scenes with Patrick Mahomes. Now, obviously, I'm not going to say that he's going to turn our next quarterback, whether it be Daniel Jones or anybody else, into Patrick Mahomes. That is folly, and it's the same goes for Josh Allen. That is pure folly. However, if you bring in a coach which can preach the right habits and to help develop our quarterback, then that's wonderful. Dable is a brilliant offensive mind. One of the best offensive coordinators in the game last year. So he's going to really help. Now you've got Kafka, who's really good with quarterbacks, and he's done a nice job with the Chiefs. Anybody coming out of the Chiefs offensive system, any coach, then I'm happy with that. Come on. I mean, it's a no-brainer. My question to you is Kafka going to be calling the plays, or is it going to be Dable?
I'd like to think it'd be Kafka. I think Dable's certainly going to have a hand in it. He mentioned it in his press conference when he was introduced that he's going to talk to Daniel Jones. He's going to see what he liked running his first 3 years in whatever system it was. And he's also going to see what he liked to run in college. And they're going to build an offense around that. So I would like to think that Kafka is going to be in control of the offense, but it's going to have heavy Dable influence for sure. You know, you don't bring in an offensive-minded head coach and not let him have any say in what the offense is. So I think it's going to be a good thing because it tells me that they're all in on Jones for now. They want to try to maximize getting what they can out of Jones right now, just to see if he is the guy and they can make him the guy. Because when you have Dable, who worked with Josh Allen, and he was a heavy part in making Josh Allen what he is, and then you have Kafka, who was a big part in what Mahomes is right now. It's not us saying that Daniel Jones is suddenly going to become a top 5, top 10 quarterback, but he doesn't need to be. You know, He doesn't need to be. I feel like if they can just get, because we saw in 2019 that he has the tools to be good, a good quarterback at the NFL level. He has the arm strength. He can run. He's got accuracy when it comes to the deep pass. But we didn't see any of that really be utilized except for like designed runs in the last 2 years. They weren't letting Daniel Jones play to his strengths. So now you have a head coach and you have an offensive coordinator who are going to try to maximize that. And we have to see if he's the guy, because right now you can say, all right, we'll move on from Jones and draft one of these rookies, but you don't know. You know, Willis might be the only one. Maybe it's Kenny Pickett, but are you going to use the 5th overall or the 7th overall pick on a unknown? Because none of these quarterbacks are really screaming out to anybody as the future. If anyone, it's probably Kenny Pickett. I'm not really sure if he's even QB1 in my mind. I don't know who QB1 in this draft class is, to be perfectly honest.
Willis has been blowing people away in Pro Day. Like, people are getting hot and excited.
Daniel Jones had a really good Senior Bowl, and so did Kyle Lauletta and Davis Webb. You see, that's what he did for 3 years in a row. He took quarterbacks based off of that performance. So it's a slip.
But also, Willis has got a really good skill set, man. If you watch his tape, he's got a big arm and he's really fast.
He is.
That kind of thing would translate. I mean, is Daniel Jones anything to get excited about? I don't think so. I think Daniel Jones has this. He's got the raw tools to be. He's tough, and he can run a little bit. He's sneaky fast, and he's got a decent arm. But his accuracy and his reading of the plays and his penchant for turnovers. I know the turnovers slightly improved, but he's still averaging more turnovers than touchdowns through his career. I don't think those things are going to be erased. I think that he is what he is. I mean, it's not like he was fantastic in college. His numbers in college were terrible. So when Dable was like in his press conference, or he said to Daniel Jones to go and get the plays that he liked to run in Duke that he thought were successful, I was thinking, dude, nothing worked out in Duke. Did you see the players he was playing with? It's a basketball school, and he isn't even a very good quarterback at Duke. His throws barely cleared the offensive line. So I'm not a massive fan of Daniel Jones. I think that when you're in the position where you've got 2 picks in the top 10, you should be looking at quarterback, because there's a reason why you're in that position, because your quarterback ain't the answer. And I'm holding true to that. But I also do believe, in fairness to Giant fans who are big Daniel Jones supporters, and I'm totally fine too. I know that Dable loves Daniel Jones, and I think that he expressed that in the interview. And I think that I have a feeling that John Mara really wants this Daniel Jones thing to work. I believe it is very similar to John Mara kind of semi-demanding the Eli Manning get that extra year to make it work. I think it's a very similar demand that the GM makes it work with Daniel Jones, at least for the 1 year. And then if it doesn't work, then blow it up and maybe search for another quarterback. As you say, Rob, you've brought in the quarterback coach. You've brought in a coach who loves Daniel Jones, but is also a really good offensive mind and has developed a top quarterback in the past. So now you've got 2 offensive coaches who have been involved in developing 2 of the best quarterbacks in the game. It screams that the Giants' priority is to fix quarterback. And I think the first year will be Daniel Jones. And I think I'm going to say sorry guys, when it turns out that Daniel Jones is not the guy, then you're going to have to go and get another quarterback, but then you're going to have the coaches that are capable of developing that next quarterback. So that's what I'm going to stick with. That's my belief. I'm sorry, I can't just move off what my eye is telling me. I think Jones does not pass the eye test. There's too many excuses made for him. Good quarterbacks overcome difficult circumstances. That's just the truth. Joe Burrow's in the Super Bowl with one of the worst offensive lines, much worse than the Giants' offensive line is. and ours is terrible, but I think his is arguably worse, and he made the Super Bowl with it because he's just that guy. And you say Daniel Jones doesn't have to be Patrick Mahomes, but hey, if you can get that guy, then that would certainly help. I know certainly Daniel Jones tops off as what, a Ryan Tannehill. I think that's what that's probably where he tops off. I think that's probably his ability level. And is Tannehill winning a Super Bowl with the Titans? No. It's good enough to get you to the playoffs, but when you need a quality quarterback, just like what happened with San Francisco. If San Francisco had a wonderful quarterback, they'd be in the Super Bowl right now. But because they have an average one, they lost because they got a great team, but they don't really have a great quarterback. And sometimes you need a great quarterback to put you over the top. Daniel Jones is never going to be that guy. So is he going to be better under Dable and Kafka? 100%. But is it going to be enough? That's debatable. For me, my quarterback belief is you should always look to bring in someone who can emulate what Eli Manning did. Daniel Jones is not that guy. And they're two completely different quarterbacks for one. But Eli Manning was clutch. He would put the team on his back, and in the fourth quarter, he'd be like, hey, we're winning this game, guys. And he'd go and win it for you, right? And you can throw me all the stats you ever want, but Eli Manning's walking into the Hall of Fame blindfolded, as far as I'm concerned. And why should we settle for anything less as Giant fans? We've seen the best, so why settle for mediocre? That's the way I believe, and that's how we should be addressing the quarterback situation. So I just want the Giant coaches to watch Willis from here on out, just to see. And if they don't believe that he's as good as Daniel Jones, fine. Then that's okay. Then we'll focus on two other positions. But if there is even an inkling where they think this guy has a higher ceiling than Daniel Jones, then I'm sorry, you trade Daniel Jones mid-round pick, and you start, and then you go with the new quarterback. That's my belief.
No, I think that's fair. That's definitely fair. I want to see them at least give this new offense a shot with Jones. Just see what you have. You still have him for at least another year, maybe two. I've been so dead set on this quarterback class doesn't blow me away. And if it's not Willis, it's none of them. I mean, maybe Pickett at this point, but I don't really see any of these guys as the guy. But then again, they always could be, so you never really know. It's such a gamble with quarterbacks. It was certainly a gamble when we took Jones, and it hasn't really paid off, or hasn't paid off at all. But it still could. I'm not holding out hope. I'm not saying he's gonna, be Eli. I'm not saying he's gonna be Peyton Manning or anything like that. But I think it's worth it for at least for this year. Let's give it a shot. Let's see what Dable and Kafka and this new staff can do, because he does have the weapons around him. You still have Kenny Golladay. You're more than likely going to have, I don't know why there's even rumors about it, of Kadarius Toney. He's going to be here.
He's going to be here.
I don't think they move on from Saquon, although they could. But even then, you're not really losing much based off of what he did last year. But Sterling Shepard could still be here. I mean, you have the weapons.
Shepard's gone. They're cutting Shepard. Yeah. There's no way they're keeping this contract.
I think they have to, but you have the weapons there, and you can always find guys in the draft. There's receivers every single year. You can always find running backs. You have ways of maximizing the weapons around Daniel Jones, but at the same time, that sounds like an excuse. It's like he needs to have weapons in order to be successful. Like you said, the quarterback is, look at Joe Burrow. I mean, yeah, they got him Jamar Chase, and let's be, Jamar Chase is an absolute monster, but Joe Burrow is also an absolute monster. So it made the most sense. You get a really good quarterback, a really good weapon. He's going to overcome the other deficiencies on the offense, which was their offensive line. He's got a good running back. He's got a clear-cut number one receiver, and they're in the Super Bowl. So good for them. So I think that if I feel like we have a number one receiver. Golladay is a good receiver. They're paying him to be, so they got to use him. So I think let's, at least for year one of this offense and this new scheme, let's see what we can do with Jones, and then if it's a bad year, which it probably will end up being, it's not going to be we're not going to go win 10 games and draft late in the first round or anything like that. We're probably going to be picking top 10 again next year. It's going to be even the GM and the head coach said it's not going to be an overnight thing. We could be in for a rough year. So if we're in a position where we have to pick in the top 10 again, that's probably going to be a lot on the quarterback. If this offense is still struggling to put up points, then yeah, it's going to be on Jones. At some point, you can't keep blaming the offensive line because there's proof around the league that it's important, but it's not the end all be all to a successful offense. So
at least we're getting the guys in the building who are really smart football people. Shane is making that change. It's such a difference. I mean, if you look at the coaching staff that Joe Judge put together, it was a shambles, and this is the nicest way of putting it. You had Jason Garrett, and you had offensive line coaches who didn't even like that much. He was firing every other few months. I mean, he was fighting with coaches, and there was unhappiness in the building. Players didn't like running laps all the time. It was a bit of a joke. So you had that situation. Then you have Dave Gettleman and his cronies around him who were terrible scouts around him and outdated, and none of them took analytics seriously, and none of them ran a modern football operation. And Dave Gettleman was at the heart of it. The big smug dude that he was thought he was better than all that. And we're now getting rid of all that, man. It's such a breath of fresh air. So now we've got the new assistant GM who's overseen two really good scouting networks in the Colts and the Eagles. So he's in there to work with Shane, and Shane's overseen one of the great rebuilds in Buffalo. And then you've got Dable, who's going to be a fantastic offensive mind. You got Kafka, who's an offensive mind. You got Wink Martindale, who's probably the best defensive coordinator and the top 10 defensive coordinators in football. And we got him as a Giant. There's so much to be excited about. Everything that the Giant fans have wanted, as you said before, everything the Giant fans have wanted John Mara to do is being done. So Trust the process. I'll have to say it, man. Trust the process. I think we just see where it goes. It's going to be a thing where it's going to be incremental. The personnel's going to improve year on year because we got smart guys now at the helm. So things are looking up for the Giants 100%.
They absolutely are. Trust the process. And I think that that is really the best way we can put it at this point, because we still have one game left in the NFL season. It's coming up on Sunday. And after that...
Who's your pick?
I think the Rams are going to win. Now that I heard the Bengals are dedicating the damn... Well, I don't know if it was probably a joke. They said we're going to win it for Harambe. I'm so sick of that damn Harambe gag, so now I'm all in on the Rams. But I would love to see the Bengals win. I don't really have a pick in this. I want a good game. None of these teams would bother me if they won. I'd like to see Odell get one. And I'd love to see Burrow get one in his second year. That'd be insane. So I think whoever wins, just give me a good game. I don't want a blowout. I don't want some 3-0 scam. Just give me a good game.
Listen, I respect both organizations. I love the Rams' new stadium. It's just absolutely awesome. But no, what I like about the Rams is they all in went to win the Super Bowl. And it's very hard at the start of the year to say, oh, we're going to win the Super Bowl, or I demand that we win the Super Bowl. But they went and got the pieces required to go and win them a Super Bowl. Credit to them, man. Odell, Von Miller, their defense is absolutely insane.
They don't have a first-round pick for like 5 years. So,
so they had to. But the biggest move is getting Stafford. They didn't have a quarterback to win them the Super Bowl, so they went and got a guy like Stafford who's capable of doing it. And I like Stafford. I think Stafford, I know he has a connection with the Mannings because I believe he went to the Manning Academy. He and Eli and Peyton are close, so if they're close to my guys, then he is good with me. Cooper Kupp, for me, should be the MVP of the NFL. wide receivers to ever win MVP, but if there should be an exception, I think it should be this year. So I like a lot about the Rams, but the Bengals are the magic story. Joe Burrow is my guy. I've liked him since day one. I'm so happy that he's balling out at the NFL level. And Jamar Chase is fantastic. Higgins is fantastic. They got a really good offense. Their defense is pretty solid with DJ Reader. I like Reader, defensive tackle. They've got a good team, really good team. So I'm excited. Obviously I love the Chiefs because of Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and stuff like that. But the fact that the Bengals managed to shut down the Chiefs' offense in the second half showed how good the Bengals are. And Joe Burrow did some magical things to run that comeback. So I'm all in on the Bengals. It's kind of a similar story to the Giants miracle season. The Bengals only won 4 games last year, and now they're in the Super Bowl. It just shows that crazy things can still happen in this league, and that's why this league is the best in the world. So I'm super excited for the Super Bowl and go Bengals.
All right, yeah. Let's see what happens. It should be a fun one.
Now, as for Brian Flores, man, what are you thinking about this nonsense?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't even want to talk about him. I don't. I'm sick of him. I get what he's trying to do. I understand it completely. It needs to be done, but I feel like at this point, everything that's been said about him is already. Anything that needs to be said has already been said. The Rooney Rule's a joke. It doesn't do what it's supposed to do. I understand what he's doing. He's probably talking himself out of getting a head coaching job, which sucks because he's a hell of a coach.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what else to say that hasn't already been said. He's fighting a fight that is probably going to cost him a job. And you can compare it in a way to Kaepernick. Kaepernick kind of vilified himself for whatever reason. He was vilified, but it happened. Look, and he's bringing up some excellent points. There is issues in the NFL, especially when it comes to coaches of color, if you want to call it that. What are we now, 2?
Minorities, yeah. Minority coaches, yeah.
Just 2 NFL coaches right now out of 32 teams. Like
it was 1, but luckily a team finally hired a minority candidate.
After firing one, though. They just fired They fired him after what did they expect? The Texans stink. What were they expecting the guy to do in his first year? And they fire him. And okay, well, they were pretty much scared into it. So maybe what Brian Flores is doing is working because they were going to hire McCown for what most people thought. And then the Flores scare kind of came in. They're like, oh, well, let's give it to Lovie Smith. So, I'm not saying Lovie's not deserving of it, but the fact that they were it seemed like they were scared into making that move, and the NFL is going to try to sell us that there's not an issue here.
Yeah.
The Rooney Rule is a joke. It is a joke. The fact that teams take advantage of it, that's what it's there for. Oh, we're just going to do it. We need to do it, so let's just do it. We're not going to hire you. I'm not saying that's what the Giants did, but
I know what the Giants did. That's probably more my question, but there's no question the Rooney Rule is not working. It's not a meritocracy in the NFL. If you're telling me that the only head coach is worthy, only minority head coaches is worthy of having a job is Tomlin and Lovie Smith, then there's something greatly wrong with the system. That's not true. There are fantastic minority coaches which aren't getting the opportunities. And what Brian Flores is saying is quite right. I mean, the fact that Brian Flores was fired in the first place is ridiculous. What the season that he just put together for Miami, it's absolutely, if there was a union, then he should be definitely suing them for wrongful termination, because it was absolute wrongful termination. And if you're finding out the reason why, because the Dolphins owner wanted him to tank games and he didn't, because he's a really good coach, and as he said with Greeny, he basically said, my coaches put too much into the game. My players put too much into the game. We all work incredibly hard to win games, and then we're being told to lose. That's just not in our DNA. That's not what we do as coaches. So good for him. I really hope that this Dolphins thing gets investigated properly, because I think there is something there. So it's, as I say, it's not a meritocracy. There's problems there. How the hell is Eric Bieniemy not a head coach somewhere for what he's done with the Chiefs, but other people get jobs? I mean, listen, if there was a question, like, if there was a time to question whether there is a meritocracy, it would be the fact that Joe Judge got a Giants job as a special teams coach with absolutely no experience of doing anything else. But a guy like Eric Bieniemy, who's run one of the best offenses in football for God knows how long, doesn't get an opportunity. I mean, that's, if there was ever a time, then that would be a question. But the idea that the Giants are racist, I have to say this because it's really important to say this. It is a flat out lie. The New York Giants have Jerry Reese as a general manager and won his 2 Super Bowls, and the Giants were loyal to him. They hired him. If there were any hint of them being racist, do you think they would have that? They've had really good minority coaches for a long time. Just Patrick Graham right there. We gave him a head coaching interview, all this stuff. I am not having that the idea that the New York Giants, who's one of the most historic organizations and one of the founding fathers of the NFL, to have their name being portrayed as anything other than an excellent organization, I'm just not going to have. And I think that Brian Flores is unhappy. I think he's upset. I think that he was really upset that he did not get the Giants job. He's a guy from Brownsville, Brooklyn. He wanted the Giants job. I believe he's a Giants fan growing up. This was his dream job. And when he found out that the Giants preferred Dable from Belichick, that made him upset. But that text did not prove anything. That text, all that text, for me, unless somebody can give me blatant evidence, that text for me was what everybody just knew anyway. I could have told you from the start, you could have told me from the start that the Giants had a preferred candidate. It was Flores. But then when they hired Shane wanted his own guy, and that was always going to be Dable. The connection was always there. So this idea that Flores is floating now that Belichick is working behind the scenes for the Giants, give me a break. That's nonsense. This idea that the Giants already gave the job to Dable is nonsense, because Dable didn't even know that he had the job prior to the time that we announced it, because we already have a sports reporter that interviewed him the day that he got hired, just a couple hours prior, and he didn't know that he got the Giants job, or who was if he was even going to be a head coach. So this idea that there was some sort of stuff going on behind the scenes for me is just a lie. I think what happened was quite obvious. The Giants had a preferred candidate. It was Dable. It was as simple as that. And also, the lawyers haven't helped themselves, because the lawyers have actually admitted that John Mara called Flores half an hour after Joe Judge was fired going, "We really want you to come here for an interview." So the idea that the Giants ran a phony process is a lie. So I don't like that. And the reason why I'm wanting to say this now is because you're getting guys like Stephen A. Smith, who's going out on his pedestal and he's shouting and screaming that the Giants are a racist organization because they've never had a black head coach. I don't know why the Giants haven't had a black head coach, but they've had a minority general manager. They've had minority assistants. So I don't see the problem there. Tiki Barber just said on WFAN that the Giants treated him like family. So it's really important that people realize that this is a good organization, and that they're not racist. I just absolutely do not believe that for an instant. I just think that Flores is upset and butthurt. Sorry, bro. There's nothing. The reason why you didn't get the job is just because we had the perfect connection between Dable and Shane. Otherwise, you'd have the job. What do you think about that?
I think you said it perfectly. Like I said, I don't want to get into it too much, though. That's just it's a touchy subject, to be perfectly honest, and I don't want to paint Flores out to be a villain here. I know he's accusing our team of some serious stuff, but I think at the end we're gonna end up, that's probably gonna go out the window. It's probably not gonna be too much because assuming they followed the rule that the league put in place, we'll be fine. The Dolphins need to be investigated if they were paying people to lose. That's pretty low. But no, I think there needs to be more discussion about it for sure. And I think like Van Flores is taking a risk by suing the league and suing different teams and still wanting a job. It's certainly it's a risk, but sometimes people have to take that risk if they want change to be made. We know Kaepernick tried to do it, and look how it worked out for him. Unfortunately, it painted him out as a villain for and it should never have happened to him. I'm not saying Kaepernick was an excellent quarterback, but the fact that they were players that were getting backup jobs, at least backup quarterback jobs, and didn't deserve it. Like, look at us. We just had Mike Glennon be the backup quarterback for us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he brought up some excellent points.
Well, it's crazy. 70% of the workforce is are African American, and there's only one head coach, two head coaches now. There's something seriously wrong, and as I say at the start of the process, I really wanted Flores, and if anything, if I put my hand on my heart right now, I'd still probably have gone with Brian Flores. I just think that he was an excellent coach, but it's not worked out. I can't claim racism on that. It's just that we went a different direction, and that's absolutely fine. It just happens.
It does happen. And on that note, we're going to end it here, but let us know what you think about any of the topics we talked about today in the comment section, about Wink, about Kafka, about Flores, Graham, whatever it may be, the draft, Super Bowl picks. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening on sportnarium.com/player on SportsWire Radio. Follow us on Twitter. Like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Let's go Giants. We will see you.
Let's go Giants.
Peace out.